just want to see how it works because sometimes it can be difficult.
My colleagues will have software download to find them.
I just want to take my time.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I hope you had a good evening yesterday for those who stayed for the apéro doc. So we are going to start the second day of this event dedicated to researchers' mobility and career development. Yesterday you had many information about research institutes, about recruitment process in academia, but also in industry. And today, and especially with this panel discussion, we are going to address some challenges of mobility, mainly administrative stuff, but also any practical information you may need to prepare your mobility, work permits, mobility support, but also when you're going abroad with your partner, how can you get support from the institute in which you are going to work. So, thank you very much for coming and for giving a talk on this very specific topic. And before we start with this really mobility support incentives, I would like to invite Mr. Dujardin, representative of Eurodoc Association, to present this a survey they made on researchers' mobility. And Antoine, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, yeah, hi everyone. I am Antoine Dujardin from Eurodoc. So Eurodoc is an European association for PhD candidates and junior researchers. And we have a group on mobility, but over the last 2 years, it moved from international mobility to intersectoral mobility. So this talk will be a little bit different to what you will have later, in that we focus on moving from academia to the industry and back if possible. So I'll first introduce Eurodoc, then the survey we made with the European Commission, and some recommendations on improving intersectoral mobility. Eurodoc, that's us. We are registered as a non-profit organization. We are based in Brussels. We exist since 2002, so we are 15 years old. We regroup 32 national associations. So we don't have individual members, only associations that may have individual members or local associations and so on, all the way down. We are run 4 ECRs, or early career researchers, and by ECRs. So we have no employee, we just like us for us. We represent ECRs on different matters. We promote the doctorate to share information between our members, and we to establish and promote cooperation between the associations. We have a bunch of topics, so just to list them: career development, employment status, interdisciplinarity, mobility, so international, intersectoral, research integrity, doctoral training, equality, mental health, which is the new topic this year, open science, which was previously open access, and the quality of research. As early career researchers, you're welcome to join them if you're interested. So you can just have a look on our website, send me an email. We are eager to have you on board. A few of our stakeholders. And now the intersectoral mobility. So it's part of a survey that was made on open science, but with quite a few questions on intersectoral mobility that are eye-opening. So the survey was done by expert group Education and Skills under European Science at the European Commission, and we were involved in the creation of some of the questions, checked the questionnaire, and promoted it on the early career researchers. The survey covers quite a broad spectrum of researchers. So for the level of researchers, you have R1, R2, R3, R4. R1 corresponds to PhD candidates mostly, R2 to what's usually called postdoc. So recognized researcher when you have your PhD but you don't have a indefinite contract yet. R3 is when you have that permanent position, and R4 is when you are a professor that's leading the field. So we are quite happy to have such a broad covering, and also for the discipline, we have quite a good representation with a lot of people from natural science, social science, engineering, technology, medical. The problem is with humanity. So we are not sure why we couldn't connect with them, but yeah, they are quite missing here. We have also a good covering of the public and private in the survey. So here, a few of the results. So I would like you to focus mostly on the question on the global opinion, on the shape of that curve, and especially on the two first lines. So when we ask the question, would you like to work or continue working as a researcher? You can see that most people strongly agree. When you ask the same question for academia, it's basically the same answer. A little bit less people, but it's very similar. When you ask the question, would like to work and continue working in the industry, the motivation is gone. So you can see that people mostly agree on working in the industry. I mean, if you have to work in industry, you want to work first and then in the academia. But you can see that the industry comes as a second choice for a lot of people. Although we know that 70% of people can't stay in academia. There's just not the place for everyone there. And people need to leave. And we would like people to leave because they want to leave and because they see opportunities in the industry and not just because they fail to stay where everyone wants to. Another interesting question is when you ask them if they want to combine industry and academia, then it's slightly better than the industry. So the problem is mostly about leaving academia. So you can't see that strong agreement in working in academia, but we are quite close. So what we consider is make sure that people can work in the industry without losing too much connection with the academia. We then asked if people think, so just like question about whether they think it's the case or not. If the PhD training prepares for an academic career, people think so. When you ask the same question for a career in the industry, well, nobody really knows. Studies have been made. Studies show that the PhD training prepares for the industry, but apparently researchers don't know it. And that may be one of the reasons why they don't really want to go in the industry, but who knows. Do they think that the PhD is attractive for industry employers? We think so. Apparently, they don't really know. You don't really know. Do they think their future career options are clear? Not really. Then a few questions on career development. Do they think they are provided with good career development support via a development plan? No. Via training courses? No. Via career counseling? No. Via career mentoring? No. Via contact with employers? Yeah, that's even worse. So we believe that people have the training, people have what it takes to work in the industry, and we also believe that there are groups that are providing researchers with the development, with the contact with employers they need. The thing is, apparently, researchers don't see them. So there may be a problem of visibility of those associations. Last quite interesting question is whether people created a company in their current position.
Researcher to become kind of employable on this huge job market. We have, on the other hand, a database for researchers' CVs on the portal. You can register your CV completely free of charge. There are more than 40,000 CVs. In doing so, an employer can search for your profile. And it could always be that they search for something very specific, and exactly you are the one who has all those kind of benefits, and they may contact you. The level of transparency is up to you when you create your profile. This is 100% up to you. What we do from the Commission side is, when it comes then to every now and then to updates, we send you, it's an automated email, we send you an automated email and say, listen, your CV, would you like to update this, or is it still valid? If you feel you have found the job of your lifetime and you will never ever move again, you can also delete your profile, basta, case closed. If you believe that your career is not done yet, you update your profile, because this is the most important part. When you want to be employable in the sector, your CV has to be accurate and good. So we recommend that you have a look at it all the time, and we support you in this. Let's think about, for an instant, on the institutions that you wish to apply for. I couldn't see right now, but perhaps we find one. You know the Charter and the Code you have heard about? It is this one document that the Commission has worked out in cooperation, here, with the European member states. It's a document. You can read it, you can sign up to it, and then you can forget it. This is one way to do it, but not the way it should be. Of course, when it is about then the implementation of these principles, these 40 principles in the Charter and the Code, it is it's a tough job. And we have created together with the member states, again, a system, a process where institutions can apply for this mini logo. You can see it over there. It is the HR Excellence in Research. I told you, it is not easy for institutions to get it, but let's say it's a quality mark. And from you as a researcher or someone looking for a job, it could be one of those decisive things to look at it from an institutional side. Those who have the logo, those institutions, they will take care of your career development. They will take care of everything you are and what you do as a researcher. In this respect, it makes sense to watch out for it, because it is the Nespresso club of all the research institutions. It is the club that makes sure that the career development is there. Have a look when you start your application, may be important for you. Okay, this was the institutional side. What else do we do under this portal? And there's a lot to be detected. I know, by instance, that people basically don't apply for jobs on weekends. Can you tell me why? This would be the best moment. There you have time. You can read through the job adverts, but we have seen that basically people do it on Mondays and Tuesdays during working hours. Interesting, isn't it? And through their office computers, not on their laptops. So have a look at it when you're in the metro. I've seen the metros are quite full, but you always find a way. Check out the next job. I told you we are working together with 40 member countries. When it comes to a mobility experience, the hardest part is to move from country A to country B. When it is international mobility, it becomes even harder, because then you need to apply for the different documents, the visa. Then we will hear a bit later about how it is to have the diplomas and everything recognized. Not such an easy task. What we have done in cooperation with those 40 member countries that I mentioned, we have created a network. And all the countries, the European countries, 40, not only the member states, as you can see, but also those who are associated to the European funding programs, they are part of it. And they have created their own pages where they support your mobility. And this is 100% set up and fed by the member countries, because I don't know exactly what's going on in 40 European countries. They know. So if you now found the job of your lifetime, have a look at the different pages, read through the documents, and find out what to do next, or get in contact with a center. The support is free of charge. You need not pay for it. They will give you the information you need to have a quicker move to the next country. You can have a look at all of them in peace and quietness. It is quite interesting what they offer as information. And we know from the statistics we do, everyone has to do a bit of statistics, The basic problems are, first of all, finding accommodation is normal. If you wish to go to another country, first thing you need to get is finding accommodation. But this is followed then by things like social security, if and how to pay the taxes, then the kids, if there are around, how to have everything in place for the spouse. We are working more and more on the dual careers, not to forget, if you have a partner, you're not going to leave him behind, her behind. You also wish to take the person with you, and the other person should also have the opportunity for a career in the new country, in the new place. Okay, this was now a bit of Europe. I quickly take you outside Europe for a second. We are working, or we have set up also a network outside Europe. Have a look. Some of you may wish to think about the next career step somewhere to the east or to the west. It is up to you. We have set up this network of representatives outside Europe in Washington, taking care of the US and Canada, Brazil taking care of the whole South American area, and then we are present in Japan, China, India, and the ASEAN region, where we have people in Thailand and in Singapore. Sounds exciting, huh? These are economies that are really emerging and where lots of research opportunities are in place. It goes without saying that research is international. So if you wish to go abroad, if you wish to start your career or be for a while outside, get in touch with our people in the different countries, in the different places. Sorry, my voice. They will keep you connected to European research. They will invite you for networking events, and they will give you all the information you need. Quite important for you, research is not only taking place in Europe, it is everywhere. Last but not least, let me show you quickly what else we do. We have set up a funding database for you, and we have set up a section that is called partnering, that is relatively new. Under partnering, you could find, on a longer term, your partners for startups, for a new company. It is up to you to register and to make it available. We have set up a section that is called Science for Refugees. We know that we have still a refugee challenge in Europe. If you wish to mentor a refugee, there is a way to sign up under this chapter. You simply click at it. We have a kind of a buddy system, an automated way to find partners, and above kind of agreement of both sides, they can link. We have more than 30 online couples, no matter where they are, and they get their mentoring done. We have a lot of training already available as MOOCs on the portal. We are looking for more. And all this is basically free of charge. So sign up for it, have a look, create your account on the Euraccess portal. It is worth it. If you work in an institution, have a look. We are always open to set up kind of job import, or please put your funding opportunities on the portal. It has to do with the open labor market. It has to do with transparency. And this is what everyone is looking for. If you want to apply for a job, you want to have the same opportunities than anyone else applying for it. So our portal and our work with the member states is a way to create this open labor market for researchers. Voila, in a very short nutshell, and there was one element that I wanted to tell you. It is brand new as of last week. You know that under the Marie Skłodowska-Curie funding, basically around 10% of the researchers get financed. And then there's a huge group of, I don't know how many percent, who had an excellent proposal, but due to budget restrictions, they cannot be financed. But they are still excellent. So what we have done, they get awarded the Seal of Excellence from the Commission. But what we have done is those people can now, as of last week, upload this Seal of Excellence to their CV. And this is, again, a benefit for your kind of employability. If an employer sees then you got the Seal of Excellence, the employer may think, wow, this guy, this girl has already done something outstanding, and this is a benefit for offering a job and employment to him, her. Have a look at it. We have started last week, so there are not many seal of excellence right there. If you were awarded a Marie Curie, it's now the time to make it visible to the outside world. Voila, this was the quick version of your access. It would take much more time to go into details, but you can find out online. We are there all the week. And if you have questions, we have functional mailboxes where me or my colleague is behind us, and we can answer all the questions you may have. If you have questions right now, please don't hesitate. Thank you.
Good morning. Today I'm here as a director in board of directors of Receiver Consortium. And I will talk you about Receiver. To talk about Receiver is important to understand what is the European Union pension landscape. Because we are talking about a pension, Receiver was mentioned and also on our access slides. And it's a goal of the European Commission to create a pan-European and multi-employer pension fund that will help the mobility of researchers. So, in Europe, we have a first pillar that is the state pension, the second pillar that is a supplementary pension financed by employer and employee through contributions paid by employer and by employee. And then the third pillar, that is a private pension plan. It means when you choose an insurance and you pay your contribution for a private pension. But why a pension fund in the second or the third pillar for young people, in particular in Europe? Because when you will be retired, it could be fine to have another pension that increases the pension, the state pension, and that will guarantee you the same welfare that you had during your working life. Joining a supplementary pension fund means to use your savings during your work life to get a pension. And it's a pension that is added to the state pension, as I said before. So, because your contributions, plus employer contributions, and plus the investment returns that are coming from your contributions, will get your supplementary pensions. And joining a supplementary pension fund since the beginning of your career means to increase the amount of your supplementary pension funds, because first you start the supplementary pension fund, and higher is will be your supplementary pension. But there are a lot of difficulties today in Europe between mobility and pensions, because now we haven't a pension fund for the second pillar that guarantees the continuity of your contribution in the fund when you move from a country to another country. So mobility of researcher is a goal of European Commission because mobile researchers risk losing their pension, their supplementary pensions when moving from a country to another. And so it could be inadequate pensions in future for researchers. And this means that working for researchers in the researcher field could be unattractive. If we don't work about these difficulties, we will have less international collaborations, the fragmentation of the labor market in Europe. So it's a big problem. And why Receiver? Receiver could help us to avoid these difficulties, to resolve the problem. Because he is a pension fund that travels with you wherever you go, because it guarantees the continuity. And so it could be a good pension fund for employees, for researchers, but also it could guarantee the activity of organizations that will join the fund. This fund is supported by European Commission. Our work started some years ago. The fund is open running from January 2017, so some months ago. It's a multi-country, multi-employer, and is domiciled in Belgium. It's a pension plan with a defined contribution. It means that it matches with almost all pension systems in Europe. Enable employees to remain affiliated to the same pension fund when moving countries. And it is efficient, the costs are efficient due to the economies of scales. Receiver is a particular composition because, first of all, we incorporate the Receiver Consortium. That is a non-profit organization located in Belgium. It was founded in 2014. And Receiver Consortium designed all Receiver pension fund, organized the public tender to find the providers, and approve all members that want to join the pension fund. As that before was the pension fund was launched in 2016 in Belgium. It is open running in Hungary, but it was approved also in Belgium and in Italy. So research institutions that want to join Receiver in Italy and in Belgium can do it. And now, and we have a tender in next January, we are finding a provider for the third pillar insurance. Who can participate in Receiver? All researchers with employment contracts, all researchers coming from outside the European Economic Area, into the economic area, and employees other than the researchers who work in the same organization of the researchers. And not only university or research institutions, also private companies that have a research and development sector. In this case, they could join Receiver. The Receiver management, as I said before, we have a research institution, public and private sector. They have to join the Receiver Consortium. And only after this joining, they could join the pension fund, or their employees could join the receiver insurance. So we have this chain. Receiver consortium, the employer, because this is only the institution that can do that. The employer joined the receiver consortium. Receiver consortium approve is joining. The employer joins the receiver pension fund, and after that, employees can join the pension fund. In case of receiver insurance, it's the same. The employer join a receiver consortium, and after that, employees can join the receiver insurance for third pillar. Advantages, as I said before, the continuity of pension benefit, no wasting or waiting periods between a pension fund and another pension fund when you move, lower costs through economies of scales, multiple high quality of investment choice. You will have a single point of contact as a member service center with automatic tracking of contribution, and a pan-European risk pooling solution covering death benefits. It's important for me that you know that the providers of receiver pension fund are the very good providers, very famous all over the world. For the member service center, we have Previnet, that is one of the most important companies, Italian companies that manage the administration of pension fund. We have BlackRock as investment lines, so it's the provider that follows your investments and your income. And thanks to that, to those providers, receiver offers a range of investment that are very interesting. We have the possibility of the lifestyle, the freestyle, and the freestyle advanced. It's recommended that at the beginning of your working life, you will choose for investment that have a high risk and high rendement. The opposite at the end of your career. And receiver suggested the lifestyle that is the investment lines adequate for researchers, and it's the best when you join the fund at the beginning of your work life. These are some consideration about the investment line indicated before. But other investment solution can be established for local requirements, as in Italy. In Italy, there is a particular rules for TFR, and receiver is in compliance with these rules. So how to join? First step, your institution has to request to joining receiver consortium, and second step, you could be membership of the pension fund. Approval of a General Assembly. Oops. And these are our conclusions. It's a great goal to for European Commission, and also for us that working with them to design this pension fund that is the only in Europe with these qualities and conditions. Oops. For more information, you can visit the receiver website, or if you want, I am my exhibition point, and I have some brochure for other information. And I thank you for your participation, and I thanks also Berenice for inviting me at this conference. Thank you.
So, good morning, everybody. Let's try again. Good morning, everybody. The reason for why I'm saying good morning, everybody, is because, you know, sometimes our bodies can be here, but our minds are very far away. So, good morning to all of you. I'm Mary. I'm from the University of Copenhagen. I have 15 minutes to talk about dual career services. So, guys, mobility is also about love. This is what Kit is also talking about. If you have a partner, what is there for me and what is there for my partner? Because we often tend to have 100% focus on the international that is going to be employed. But what about the spouse? What about the partner? This is the stuff I'm going to talk about because at the University of Copenhagen, we have developed dual career services. So, why dual career services? The importance of helping mobile partners in their career transition and finding a job. We have a lot of data, statistics around what is the main barrier when it comes to mobility. About 4 years ago, we took part in the Tandem project, which was funded by the European Commission. One of the main barriers was if my partner is not happy, cannot settle down, cannot transition, there's a big chance that we will leave the country. So what we have done at the University of Copenhagen from the highest level is that we have decided we need to address this, and how can we do that? A bit about the University of Copenhagen. Is there anyone from the US here? United States? Is there anyone? Nobody dare share. Well, anyway, the university was founded in 1479, so actually the university is older than the US. We have about 40,000 students, over 9,000 employees, including 5,000 scientists. Out of the 5,000, it's about 2,500 that are internationals. We have about 9 Nobel Prize winners, and we rank number 6 in Europe, which is really, really good. In terms of nationalities, here is the top 7, I think, and you can see German is number 1 represented. And then we have France as number 6 or 7. So the reason for why I'm showing you these numbers is also to let you know that you're most welcome to, you know, just look at the University of Copenhagen and see if there are some, you know, areas you're interested in, because we have quite a few positions available on our website. So in the organization, where am I placed? I'm in international staff mobility. This is where I am. I work together with 12 other colleagues, and what we do is we are the support unit, the international support unit in terms of international hiring. And here you can see we have, how does this work? Here you have all the different faculties and departments. And if you're thinking, is it us who do the formal hiring? It isn't. It's actually the departments. But in terms of advising around tax, children's care, kindergarten, all of these things, dual career services, this is what we do for internationals. Dual career services. Well, the dual career services is targeted PhD, postdocs, professors. Our services is not for masters, but for this target group. We have about plus 500 spouses in our dual career spouse network. And if you're thinking, who are these spouses? We have quite a few who have an academic profile, but we also have others who do not have an academic profile, who are engineers, who are, you know, from the creative area. We have quite a few architects and so forth. I conduct around 100 to 150 individual job coaching sessions per year. And if you're thinking, who am I and what is my background? Well, I've been working as a career consultant for the past 8 years. I've specialized in career development and talent management. 4 of the years I've been working at the University of Copenhagen. Volume-wise, I've coached more than 5,000 individuals. So I think one of the most common questions I get from people is, Mary, do you have a job for me? And the first thing I say, I don't have a job for you. Then they look at me, then they say, so what can you do for me? Then I say, well, I have a large network. I know quite a lot about the Danish labor market. And career-wise, I've been also working in the private sector. Before I was working as a communication and marketing specialist in an engineering company, writing very sexy stories about offshore and gas systems. So I decided that was a bit boring, and that's why I started doing, you know, something around career development and coaching. Where do our spouses come from? From this slide you can see, well, it's global. We have all nationalities, we have all profiles. Facts and numbers. This is a survey we did last year. We were actually surprised to see that there were so many males, which we really like. But the percentage is 65 for female. And if we look at the countries, China is top 1, and then Germany, India, Spain, and the US. So, the Dual Career Spouse Network. This is the services we provide for spouses. We provide these services before arrival, on arrival, and the reason for why I'm saying before arrival is because when we have an international hiring, maybe they're considering to come to Denmark, but maybe they also have other options, maybe Oxford, maybe Cambridge. Well, what I do is I do quite a few Skype coaching where I talk with the international spouse and try to hear, how can I help you? And then I get to look at their CV and so forth. All of our services that have some sort of job focus. These are areas within career counseling, and I think you who are working as career consultants too, I think a lot of these themes are some of the themes you also, you know, guide, people around. I roll up my sleeves a lot in terms of looking at people's CVs. I look at CVs not just once, twice, many, many times, and I'm used to looking at an academic CV which is maybe 5, 10, even 15 pages long, because that's possible in Denmark, and then, you know, making it shorter to 2, 3 pages if it's targeting industry. Denmark loves LinkedIn. And this is something, if you're coming to Denmark, you need to know. And how to brand yourself and what to highlight and what not to highlight. In Denmark, networking is also a big thing, like here in France. It's said about 60 to 70% of positions are never listed. So I meet job candidates who have used 99% of their time looking at jobs that are listed. And then I say to them, that is not a very smart strategy. I recommend you to have like an 80% focus on networking and 20% on jobs which are listed. So the whole thing around networking is really important to, you know, coach around. My colleague Mark de Vos, he is a specialist expert around Danish working culture. So if you're going for the job interview, what should you be aware of? Which funny questions can the Danes ask? And so forth. So these are the typical questions I get. Do you have a job for me? Plenty of practical questions. I have a dog. Where is the best park for the dog to, walk about? So this is just to give you an idea of what is it I do. This is a slide I often show international spouses, partners I'm coaching. Does anybody know the cultural shock model? Can I just, no. Well, this is a very interesting model to show. It's here you have happiness. Happiness can be plus, that's good. It can also be minus, that's when you're discontent. And here you have time, months. And this guy here, he did a big survey where he tried to find out what is it that happens with you when you move to a foreign country. There will be a honeymoon phase where everything is amazing. You love the country, you love the food, you love everything. But then the weather changes. You come from maybe somewhere where it's better in terms of weather. Then you start experiencing the cultural shock. Why are the Danes not smiling? When I go for the job interview, why is everyone like this? And then, in terms of adjustment, you start realizing, oh, the Danes are not evil, they're not bad. They are just maybe a bit introvert, they're just checking me out. Then you start adjusting, and then you have the adaptation phase. I find this model very interesting because it makes people's shoulders just go a bit down. And the reason for why this is green down here is because a lot of the work I do is where people are in minus, they have no energy. So what I try to do is create energy around their job search. So, what do our spouses say about our services? We get really good ratings. We have candidates who come to Denmark, they say, I want to have exactly the same job as I had in India as a bank clerk or whatever. Then I say, well, have you tried to consider plan B and so forth? So in terms of our services, we get really good ratings, and this is something we have shown management. And we get a lot of support in terms of our dual career services. These are our networks. We have spouse lunches, which have career focus. A lot of our internationals, they have kids. So we have kids event. We have a job cafe. And then we have something called the International Dual Career Network. This is actually really interesting because what we started doing was we started talking with companies. Because a lot of companies, life science companies, bioscience companies, they also have spouses. And then we started talking about how can we help these spouses. So my colleague Mark and I, we created the IDCN Copenhagen chapter about 2 years ago. And the interesting thing about IDCN, it's a global non-profit organization. You can always read more about it, but the whole purpose around the IDCN is to create events and then open your doors. And then through events, the spouses can get to meet corporates. So this is just an overview of the 18 corporate members we have. Yesterday, you got the pleasure to hear and talk with Novo Nordisk, you know Carlsberg. So this is just to give you an idea. Well, if we're talking to people and maybe want to pursue a career in industry, we can say, well, we have a network, and this is, you know, something we actually use in terms of attracting and retaining. We have about 31 IDCN success stories. These are just numbers to highlight, you know, how many have masters, PhDs. We have an average of 2.2 who are getting jobs through the IDCN, which is a great number. So this is just to showcase which events have been there. Maersk, the big container company, they held a great event. About a month ago, we had an event at the university which was about pursuing a career in academia and so forth. So, this is all I had to show you. And if you have any questions, anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Bye-bye and welcome.
So my name is Alexander Fabi. I'm working for the French Ministry of Higher Education. I don't know if some of you know about what does mean ENIC-NARIC, but we will talk a little bit about that. It deals with the recognition of foreign diplomas, and we are everywhere in France, all around Europe, everywhere. So we have little points in each country. First of all, I will talk a little bit about what does mean ENIC-NARIC and its structure. And after, I will explain to you the recognition procedures to obtain a comparability statement in France. But I will also talk a little bit, if we have time, I don't know if we still have time, about the project where the center is involved. So, the French Department for the Recognition of Foreign Qualification, of course, does the recognition of foreign qualification. We issue a statement of comparability. You have to know that we don't speak about equivalences, but comparability. Your master, your PhD can be compared in the French system of higher education with this diploma. It's not equivalence, it's comparability. The juridical terms are really important. It's not the same reality. But we also inform about the French qualification to the foreign ministries of higher education, for example. They receive a French PhD. They want to know what does it mean, which are the learning outcomes, for example, and we inform the foreign stakeholder abroad about our system. And we also inform people, private people, but also ministries, about the exercise of regulated profession in France. For example, you have a degree on medical and paramedical studies. You know that it is quite hard to work with this kind of diploma because it deals with regulated professions. So we give advice to people, to private people, about what they can do with their degree in France, where to send their diplomas, all of questions like that. Of course, the main goal is to promote the international academic and professional mobility by improving the transparency of foreign credentials. If I am an employer, I receive, I don't know, Russian degree or I don't know, Polish degree, I would like to have more detail, more information about that. So this comparability statement give all the information of that. I will show you an example, a sample after. Of course, it's not a big department. We are 21 people of 13 nationalities. So it is a great trend because we are able to expertise the diplomas, the degrees, the transcripts without translation. For example, Arabic language, we are able to expertise English, German, Chinese, Russian, all this kind of languages without translation. People work with a geographical specialization. For example, Arabic speakers, they expertise only Arabic diplomas, of course. We receive a lot of diplomas from Syria, now Afghanistan, so it's quite hard. Everything is online because last year, in 2016, we have received more than 23,000 requests, and we issued 23,000 comparability statements. So can you just imagine if you receive all this information by the post? It's just not impossible. And 37,000 of the requests come from North Africa, Arabic-speaking countries. So you can see on about the top 10, we also receive European diploma degrees. For example, Spanish from Belgium, Italy, but also Russia. We receive a lot of PhDs from Russia, for example, because I'm working with Russia. And people want to know what they can do with this kind of diploma. Of course, they can present their PhD directly to an institution or an employer, but it is like an help to obtain a comparability statement for their request. People used to proceed to a recognition, of course, for academic purposes. They want to pursue higher education in France, for example. But as you obviously know, the higher education institutions are autonomous. So they can accept your file, or they can say no. So it's not compulsory to obtain a comparability statement. It's an help for you, but the last word, it will be from the institution or the employer. Sometimes some institution can ask, ask to people to present comparability statement which showed all the details about the diploma. Of course, you have academic purposes, but also professional purposes. People who want to pursue higher education in France, and people who want to work directly with their, I don't know, master, PhD, license, but also professional diplomas. And we orient all the people about what they want to do with their specialty. For example, if they have specialty in nanoscience, in astrophysics, they want to create a firm, an enterprise. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not possible because it is talking about regulated professions. For example, in medical and paramedical studies. In order to evaluate the diplomas, we have 10 criteria, which are this one. The most important, of course, are the two on the top, eligibility criteria. Is a diploma is recognized by the awarding country, and is the institution is also recognized, have obtained an accreditation from the Ministry of Research. It is obvious that these two criteria have to be, we have to take care about these two criteria. Of course, you have also other criteria, for example, the official length of studies, the admission requirement, for example, and if there is bilateral agreement between France and this country, and of course the professional and academic right. For example, if you have a PhD, I don't know, for research or PhD professional, you have some countries like that. So, okay. And of course, it is a great help when there is a quality assurance in the country regarding the evaluation of the diploma. So everything is online. Okay, I will quicker. Everything is a procedure online. If you have any question, I will send you by email after. People gave their diploma online in a PDF format. They can receive their attestation, their statement online also. So there is no more paper, and it is like that. So you have two parts. Attestation de comparabilité in French, it means statement of comparability. So you have the name of the diploma. For example, here you have a Bachelor of Arts honors, which have been awarded by the University of Gloucestershire in UK. You have all the detail of the official length of studies, but also which are the rights for the holder of the diploma after the academic and professional rights. You have the results of the expertise, the French level, but also the European level. So people with this comparability statement can show all around Europe, the European area of higher education, this statement, and it will be understood for everybody. So you have on the other part, of course, what does it mean? For example, the level 2, and for the European level, it is 6, and you have all the details on the other part. The French Enigmatic Center is also involved in some projects, for example, how to implement, how to develop the recognition of refugees or displaced persons. We receive a lot of diplomas from Syria, Iraq a little bit, Africa, but not only, all the areas are concerned. We are creating a center in Latin America, in some countries of Latin America. It is a European project, of course. All around the Mediterranean Sea, we are creating a center for recognition and good practice. So we don't do only the recognition of foreign diplomas. We also deal with projects, professions. So it can be interesting to take aware about that. So is it okay? It was a bit quicker, but if you have any question after, I can reply to your request. Thank you.
So that's your time to ask, questions for our speakers. Who will be the first?
Thank you for that really interesting session. I learnt a lot, and I have a question for Katrin, for Kitty Geringer. So I'm very interested in the work that Euraccess are doing, and I'm wondering what's the actual reality? I mean, do you have any information about the tracking of the employers looking at the CVs of the researchers? I just wondered if there's any more detailed information that you have.
impossible. I said we leave kind of the recruitment side between the employer and the applicant. So we cannot track this, and in any case, people who come through the online version or those who send letters or pigeons or whatever, you could never ever track this down. We know just by success stories or by storytelling that the employers are quite satisfied with the CVs they receive, but I cannot tell you more about kind of the source from where they come or from where they got the information. Do not forget we have a lot of collaborations with other job platforms like Academic Transfer in the Netherlands or Galaxy here in France. There are many, so you could never ever be sure what is kind of the source of the information.
Morning. Good morning. Thank you for your very nice presentation. I would like to make one question to Mary Kobia. I would like to know if your service corresponds to the employees of University of Copenhagen and about the adaptation and about the employees and the partners of the employees of University of Copenhagen, or correspond to the other employees in the other sector in Copenhagen. Thank you.
The services, can everybody hear me? Is it on?
The service, yeah.
The services we provide are for employees at the university, PhD, postdoc, and up. So if you're a master's student, this is not included, unfortunately. But what we can see in terms of the spouses, the partners, some of them, they're also doing like dual career in academia. So we actually advise around, you know, the CV, the cover letter, and they get a job as a postdoc, PhD, whatever the university. And then they tell about this experience. Oh, I was attending this workshop. So could you do the same workshop for some of our colleagues? So this is also something we're doing a lot of. And we've just got funding also for a reflex program funded by the European Commission. This is very much related to career development for other employees at the university. So I hope this answers your question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No more question?
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much. It's good. Thank you very much for this nice and interesting presentation. I have a question for Alexander Fabi about recognition of Erasmus Mundus diplomas in France. For example, I will give exact case. Okay. I have a question about recognition of Erasmus Mundus diploma in France. I will give exact situation. For example, we have 5 universities, all are from Europe. One of them is from France. The curriculum was prepared by French university, but the mobilities were done in other European countries. So this study is recognized in France, and how it is recognized, and if this diploma needs additional recognition. Thank you.
Can you hear? On the lips. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for your question. Of course, I didn't have enough time to talk about that. If your question is really significative of European degrees. If one degree is recognized by the French Ministry of Education, it's not, it's useless to do this procedure because it is a joint degree. You are talking about that? Joint degree?
Yes, I aware about that, but maybe you are also aware that the first Erasmus Mundus, which were starting like in 2007 already,
Yes.
they had a lot of problems on ministry level with recognitions. So, for example, I am one of those cases that I have. One of the universities was in Reims. Other universities, for example, I had in Spain and in Norway, but the curricula was prepared here. And now my question is, and diploma was given by Spanish ministry. So my question now is here: is recognized this diploma automatically in France? Theoretically, yes, but practically?
It was in 2007, yes?
It started in 2008.
Okay, because the INICNARIC centers among European countries have been created, implemented in this year. So maybe it was not recognized at this time, but if it have been awarded by the Spanish Ministry of Education, there is no problem. Of course, the employers are totally independent here, and the university also, Grandes Écoles also. So if you one day present to an institution, an employer, your diploma, your comparability statement from INICNARIC. INICNARIC, it means République Française. But if you show that, they have their own pedagogical commission as they can decide.
Yes.
They have the last word.
Yes, but what I don't understand, if all diplomas since, let's say, 2005 or more were issued with a European supplement, okay?
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
supposed to give automatic recognition to everyone. Doesn't matter if it's working, if it's studying just in one country or in many countries in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So why my diploma, which is supposed to be very elitarian diploma like Erasmus Mundus, needs additional recognition? This is what I don't catch. What is happening?
Because sometimes you have employers or higher education institutions, they don't know what is your diploma. So they need like an addendum. It's not compulsory, of course, because if you send your diploma to an institution, maybe it will be okay. But with some other, you will have problem because they won't understand what is the curricula. Even you present diploma supplement and old information. Mm-hmm. But in this case, I don't know, because this is the first time I'm hearing about that. Maybe you can send me an email, I will see.
I will, thank you.
It's quite strange, because if you have all the information, the DS, the diploma supplement, all the information, Europass, and all these tools, principle, there is no problem.
Okay,
I don't,
thank you very much.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Maybe it is the institution.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
And I have a second question. It's related to HR mark for the institution as a quality of recognition of research. What are the required? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It is not about research. It is about the human resources strategy.
Okay.
It's not the research as such. Okay.
Oh yes. Thank you very much for this clarification. So what are the requirements for the institution to get this mark?
Okay. It is, let's say it's a permanent process. The institution has to start to launch the process. in sending a letter first to the Commission. Then there is a 12-month period where they can go through a gap analysis, create an action plan, discuss with stakeholders such as students or internal kind of staff consortia. And then they send back the documentation to the Commission. External evaluators will assess the documentation and decide if there are some changes needed, or if this award, this mini logo thingy, can be given to the institution. If there are sort of amendments to be done, it goes back to the, it's a bit lengthy, huh? It goes back to the institution with some recommendation, and then they can resubmit. If the award is given immediately, this award should be displayed on the website of the institution and on all the documentation, and it is automatically then linked to all the jobs published on the Euraccess portal to the institutional side. Then there is another period of, I think, 36 months, and then it comes to a reassessment of the institution, leading then at the very end to an external assessment after a certain period of time, and then it starts kind of again. So it is a recurrent process of activities that need to be done. I mean, it is not an easy process, but it is for the institution also kind of something where you invest in your strategy for human resources. And in this respect, the institutions who did it, they are quite satisfied that they are now at a level where they can really prove that they are working in this respect. Mm-hmm. So it's not the research, it is really the human resources strategy.
I understood. And what is the cost for the institution?
No, I mean, as such, the cost lies in the institution, that you have to invest time. Mm-hmm. But it's not, there's no kind of, it's not that you pay a fee for it, but it is the time that needs to be invested.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Maybe a last question regarding the recognition of foreign degrees, because we are lucky to have in this panel discussion a representative of research institute, and especially she's involved in human resource department. So Lina, how do you deal with foreign degrees when you receive applicants, international applicants? How do you deal with European degrees and degrees coming from international universities?
For my institution, when we receive an application from abroad, as he said before, we consider the comparison with the Italian studies. And in case of not European citizens, we need the declaration of value from the embassies to have the visa, and it's requested from visa requirements. And in this case, we are sure that the candidates has the right studies for us, because somewhere, in particular in not European countries, there are some differences between European legislation. So we consider our comparison or the embassy declaration of value.
So, if there is no question anymore, I suggest we do a break right now. So coffee and tea is waiting for you in the other side of the room, and we start again at 11:40. And thank you, of course, for all the speakers who did a great presentation. Thank you very much. We are going to start again with the next session. Can you please take your seats?
Posez votre micro sur le menton et de surtout pas vous mettre là. Si vous faites ça, on ne vous entendra pas dans la vidéo, donc on n'entendra pas celui derrière. Voilà. Okay? Donc ici, et après si c'était... You speak here. Just like this, okay?
So, let's start with the next session. This one is a panel discussion with 5 great speakers. Again, they are here to share with you their experience as doctorate holders having left academia, I would say, and some of them have also an experience abroad. As I told you, they are here to share their story with you. And I'm going to ask all of you to present briefly who you are and what you have done until now. So basically, your academic and professional background until now.
I start? Thank you. Hi, I'm Christiane Abele. I hold a PhD in history, so I think I'm the only SS Social Sciences and Humanities representative in this panel. I have studied history in Germany at the University of Freiburg, where I also did my PhD. And I've come to France 2 years ago, just after the PhD, where I now work for a small research cooperation foundation, the RFIEA, Réseau Français des Instituts d'Études Avancées. We're based in Paris, and I am project leader for a research funding platform called funded.fr.
I am Margarete Remmer-Triepe. I am based in Hamburg at TUTEC Innovation, which is a technology transfer company of Hamburg University of Technology. I started my academic career in studying chemistry and did a PhD in physical chemistry centuries ago, almost. So I finished in 1994. Shit, no one will believe me that I'm 20 anymore. This was definitely a hard time for women, which I knew. But I counted that all male chemists would be absorbed by the 3 large chemical companies. But it didn't work out because we had a recession before 2008. 1993 also was the recession. No chemist got a job, so I had to struggle around, do lots of different jobs and keep my market value high. I also did my own company which finally led me into my current position with TUTEC Innovation. So since 10 years now, more than 10 years now, I'm working on European projects, on innovation management consultancy, and on mainly related also around education for early stage researchers.
So, good morning. My name is Olivier Schmidt. I'm currently an associate professor of political science at the Center for War Studies at the University of Southern Denmark. So I'm also a social scientist, I guess. As you can know, I'm currently back into academia, and you might wonder why I'm here on that round table. But before coming back to the dark side of the force and to research, before doing my PhD in international relations, I worked for the United Nations for a couple of years, and while doing my PhD, I was working for NATO in Brussels and in Afghanistan, so I have some experience in working for and in international organizations and how they approach the entire PhD experience, let's put it that way.
Hello, my name is Caroline. I'm from France. I have a background in biochemistry, and I did my PhD in Germany in microbiology. After that, I wasn't quite sure whether I wanted to continue in academia or do something else. I could choose between academia and working in an SME in Brussels, and I chose the latter. So they needed a microbiologist for a FP7 project. So that's when I started to know a bit more about the dark side of the force. I learned about sustainable development. I learned about biomimicry. And this motivated me with a former colleague to create a company to put into practice biomimicry. And we are now developing a soil remediation solution which is bio-inspired and which is using mycelium. So I'm the co-founder of Novobiome, the society, the company which is going to develop and commercialize the solution. I also represent an NGO based in Brussels called Biomimicry Belgium to promote biomimicry in Belgium. And I'm part of a wider network of biomimicry professionals in Europe. And I'm also a mom-to-be.
Hello, I hope you can hear me well. My name is Deborah Aziz. I'm 39 years old. I'm a Parisian born and bred. I graduated from the engineer school called Agro-Paris-Tech, but I was more interested into basic science and biology, actually. So after that, I went on to do my PhD. I went to Montpellier to have a little bit of sunshine and the sea, and it was wonderful. So I have a PhD in cell biology, quite fundamental basic research. And after that, I really wanted to go abroad. I wanted to pursue a career in science. Maybe I was a little bit naive. And I chose to go to the UK because it was not too far from France. I was not brave enough to, go to the US. So I stayed 5 years in the UK, which is quite long. But it was quite a tough experience because my mentor was on a 5-year tenure track, and so, as you can imagine, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. Maybe we can discuss this later. So I came back to Paris, and I did a little break. I needed to think and mature my professional project, learn how to polish up my CV and really do some personal thinking, which I did not have time to do when I was a postdoc, because I was on the bench, at the bench almost 24/7. And I'm now working for ANR, which is the French National Research Agency, So it's an administrative job, but my PhD is still useful, and I don't regret this choice. I wanted to to do a transition from academia to more policy-based administrative job. And so what I'm doing is organizing and managing a call for research proposals in health and biology, both at the national and at the European level.
So because you already mentioned a little bit what you're currently doing, my next question will be, can you tell us exactly what you do, what is your job about, what's your daily life in your position, and maybe for you, Olivier, a little bit more focused on your experience in this international organization and not necessarily in your current position.
I can start. So, as I mentioned, I am working for a research cooperation foundation, which means I'm working in research management. So I haven't completely left the world of research, but I'm now sort of supporting researchers, especially social science and humanities researchers. I have been recruited by this small foundation, RFIEA, which you don't need to know. No one does, they're really small. But they have sort of developed this web platform called funded.fr, and they needed a content manager to actually put the content on the website to find funding opportunities for social sciences researchers worldwide. So I was recruited basically Googling funding opportunities, fellowships, and so on, and putting them on the website. That was the first part of my job. And it has since developed. I have been promoted project leader of this platform, which means I have now budget responsibilities for this project. I am developing a communication plan, so I've got this communication competencies as well. We are trying to develop several partnerships, so we're trying to enlarge the platform to other disciplines and other fields of research. And I'm sort of negotiating with possible partners, institutional partners in France and abroad, to build up this kind of partnerships. And I also have one intern, which I am encadré. I don't know how to say that in English. Orienting. So that's sort of the competencies and my daily job. We're a very small team. I'm working in close collaboration with one colleague, which I very much appreciate, because during my PhD, at least in the social sciences, we are very lonesome wolves, and I was often feeling very lonely alone with my computer. And my current job is something that's very much in collaboration with one or two colleagues, which I very much appreciate. Yeah, I think that's all.
So what I'm doing exactly is the wrong question, because I also would like to do what I'm doing exactly. But let me put it into 4 strands. So the first strand, which I've started with at TUTEC, is I'm involved in development of trainings. I started with an innovation management training program for small and medium enterprises. It was a project funded by European structural funds. And then I pursued this with other kinds of workshops more related to European to early stage researchers. And as I had been self-employed before, I always had an interest in earning money also, and earning my own salary. And so what I did is I started to transform these workshops, which were originally funded by European money. I started to transform them into something sustainable, which is still on the market. So the one workshop that was, the funding ended in 2008, and we offer the workshop still. So developing these workshops, doing these workshops on my own, and finding constantly new topics is one of the strands. The other strand is that I support researchers at Hamburg University of Technology or Industry in writing convincing proposals for Horizon 2020, for the European funding. So they deliver the excellence, and I deliver the translation from scientific excellence to value in the world on the one hand, and to and the match to the interests of the funder. And the third strand has been funded by the Enterprise Europe network. I have the pleasure that I'm allowed to spend 7 of my working days with one SME at the time, and accompany them on their way to improve innovation management capacity. The last but not least strand, which is currently developing, is I managed to become deputy head of our department. And I'm currently strongly involved in all the leadership issues, which we are doing on a very interactive basis. And I'd like to highlight this because I think sooner or later, most of you will have to leave research and will have to also head for other tasks.
Can you hear me well? Or, okay. I had different jobs because they were in different organizations and in different positions, so I'll try to explain them as much as I could. Working for the United Nations in Geneva was part of a center called Center for the Democratic Control of Armed Forces. And what they are doing is what we call security sector reform. The idea is to try to develop and institutionalize in a number of countries the parliamentary and democratic means to control the security sector in general, whether the armed forces, the police institutions, and the intelligence services. Because I'm not going to lecture you on this, but you can easily assume that in a number of countries, those very strong security services can have a disruptive effect on political life. So the entire purpose of the Bureau is to try to foster and develop those institutions. And what we're doing was basically training programs. So going into countries and train either member of parliaments to explain to them what a standard democratic control procedure looks like and what they would like to have implemented as in terms of legislation. So it will be legal training, but also for the armed forces themselves or the security services, you know, what you are supposed to do in terms of basic respects for human rights, torture, interrogation, these kind of issues. And in that context as well, you are doing sometimes it's very basic training in terms of what international humanitarian law is providing, and most of them actually don't know that. So we developed a number of packages, training packages, which were first sent out and distributed for people to read. There was a number of small memos, 2-pagers, you know, that we will develop and circulate, and develop training programs either for MPs or for the security services. When I worked for NATO, I worked in 2 different positions. The first one was in the International Secretariat in Brussels. I was part of the operations division, and were in particular monitoring the Afghanistan intervention, which was full speed at the time. When you work for an international secretariat, you basically have 2 different tasks. You have to realize that the entire policy process is driven by the political agreements between states. And it's member states and the diplomats who represent them that actually agree on something that you have to implement afterwards. So a part of the job is to facilitate the discussions and the negotiations between diplomats. So you have weekly, bi-weekly meetings of 28 member states, and your job as part of the International Secretariat is to circulate in advance, topic on the agenda. States will want to have things on the agenda, and you are the one who are centralizing everything. Sometimes part of your job is when you know that a specific policy item will be discussed or controversial, you have behind the door conversations with diplomats to try to facilitate the negotiations, the official negotiations that is going to take place. And you are supposed to facilitate the entire discussion and negotiation itself, including taking notes and circulate the memorandum. So that's one part of the job, facilitates the daily job of state interactions. The second part of the job is policy implementation. When something is developed and is agreed upon by the member states, you are supposed to follow up and make sure that the NATO bureaucracy, which is huge and slow and cumbersome, aligns with what has been decided. And the second job I had was in Afghanistan, working for the senior civilian representative, which is basically the, he was supposed to be the political NATO representative, but in fact, the main principal agent, let's put it that way, was the commander of ISAF, so the military forces. So we had the senior civilian representative had a small team of 20 people who were supposed to facilitate the entirety of the political process between NATO and the Afghan authorities. My specific job was to monitor and facilitate the training of the Afghan security forces, so the armed forces and the police forces, which was, as part of the ISAF mission, taken charge of by member states. So Germany was training, for example, the police. A number of other states, France, US, UK, were training the armed forces. And my job was to try to monitor all this, try to give it some coherence, and report back to the senior civilian representative, who will then, depending on what was going on, take it up with the commander of ISAF or up the chain of command. That was pretty intense because it's a small team, and you work in a compound, or you are in on the field with surrounded by military personnel around you all the time. So I mean, you don't sleep much for 4 to 5 months, but that's just how it is. That's part of the job. So it's all very different types of activities that you can undertake. And so there is no single one international organization type of experience. It really depends on the posting you have and the job you have, and of course the bosses and colleagues you have.
So back to soil remediation. Guess what I'm doing at the moment? I'm writing a grant proposal. So, well, and why am I doing this? Because a few months ago, well, I was back at the bench, reaching the first proof of concept for the technology. So we had reached a milestone, and now we need a second round of funding. So, which is why I'm back at writing and setting up different types of activities within a research program in the hope to convince regional funding agency at the Walloon region. So yeah, what I'm doing is thinking strategically of where I want this technology to go, how to place it on the market of soil remediation, together with my colleague who is more on the business side. But of course, I have to think about the research and innovation agenda and what we want to do with this technology and how much more innovation we want to put in it. So it's not really different from what you would do in academia when you plan to work with colleagues in a consortium within Europe. But it's just that your topic is, well, in between innovation and something that is really applied. So you can think about a bit of fundamental research, but you really need to describe all the applied side and how much job is it going to create, and in terms of economic value and market potential.
Maybe just another question to you, Caroline. Can you tell us why you decided to create your own company?
Why did I decide that? At the end of my experience at this SME in Brussels, I had discovered many things. I mentioned sustainable development, but in fact it means learning about the state of the planet, which is really bad. So once you know that and you know all the facts, you cannot just do nothing. And at the same time, because I was in this SME with a weird bunch of people, so ecologists, people from GDF Suez wanted to make amends, and so I don't know what it is to work in a real corporate environment, and I didn't feel like doing that. And in the end, I felt that I really wanted to work on my own project. So it's probably not the easiest choice, but at least you really do it for yourself. It's your project. So that's the motivation, and what drives me is do something for the planet, really.
Okay, so, well, at ANR we receive grant proposals, and my job is to organize the evaluation of all the submitted proposals. So it's very, very administrative. I'm really far away from the bench, but I do interact with scientists. I receive all the proposals. I have a global view of what's being done in a certain domain, which is really interesting. I also have to organize panels of experts. So I meet, key opinion leaders and people coming from very different backgrounds, people from the industry, because I was also involved in the funding of public-private partnerships in biology, which is something that I'm very much interested in. So you learn a lot of things. You are far away from the bench. You are in front of your computer. You can, sometimes I can move a little bit if I have to go and meet a consortium, especially when they have problems, because we don't only organize the selection of grant proposals, but there is also a scientific follow-up, which is also very interesting. And now at the European level, it's about liaising with the other countries which have their national agencies, participating into a call for proposals. So for the moment, I'm involved in an ERANET, which is one of the funding, one of the programs in the framework program Horizon 2020, sorry. And it's about cardiovascular diseases, and we just opened, no, not yet, but we announced the opening of a call for proposals for young researchers on cardiovascular diseases. So now it's going to be about, again, selecting the proposals, organizing the meetings, gathering the experts, and there is also parallel activities that are interesting. It's about organizing a strategic research agenda. So again, facilitating, I think it's a very good word, facilitating the exchange of ideas between experts so that they come up with an agenda for, let's say, the next decade, what should be funded in a certain domain, and how, and what are the strategic actions that have to be implemented. I hope this is clear enough.
Still regarding your position, or former position in your case, what do you like the most and what you dislike?
Okay, I'll go first. What I think I liked the most was the diversity in the job, in the jobs themselves, in the sense that you have a different topic to deal with almost every single week. There is a degree of excitement as well, because there is something that is quite gratifying. It's the fact that you can see a policy process being implemented. And when you see that happening, it's, you say, well, okay, now I see where it comes from, and I participated in that. That's quite nice. What I disliked the most is that, well, you know, as a social scientist, there is one thing you learn, which is that human organizations are very bad at learning and usually make the same mistakes over and over again. And you see that a lot. You end up every couple years with the same debates, the same proposals, because people change in the organizations, so the knowledge is being lost. There is almost no procedure for in-house knowledge storage, basically. And it's the same for every single inter-organization you can think about. And at some point, there is a degree to which you realize that you are sort of caught into this wheel, and it becomes very frustrating. And as I was mentioning, it's very gratifying to see a policy process being implemented, but it doesn't happen that often, because moving a large bureaucracy is difficult. It's quite difficult. And the last thing is that working for an inter-organization, you are much more dependent on the political climate than you are working for like a national bureaucracy. In a national bureaucracy, you are to some degree dependent on how the political priorities are being set up. It's multiplied by the number of states within an inter-organization, which can make it also quite frustrating.
Yeah, I can maybe just continue on that. But I'm going to start with things I like, to start with a positive thing, which I like. I'd say it's three things. I like having colleagues, I like having diversity, and I like having strangely loved deadlines. Because on this last thing, which I found very frustrating during my thesis, that you don't really have a deadline. You've got like funding for 3 years, and then nobody asks you what you're doing until at the end of those 3 years. You need to have a book ready. Whereas now you've got much shorter deadlines, you've got meetings and reports to submit, and I find that much easier to deal with, actually, having shorter deadlines and having smaller tasks, having more diverse tasks as well, which I very much appreciate, and being able to work in a team, even if it's a very small team, and being able to benefit from each other's very complementary competencies as well. I've mentioned we've got an intern in our team. She's a student in communication, and she's way more competent than I am, for example, in everything that's social media and communication and all that. And it's very, very nice to be able to benefit and to just sort of discharge some of the tasks on someone else. And that's something I didn't really experience during the thesis. What I dislike, or what I miss maybe more, is being able to enter very profoundly into a subject, which is obviously something you can do when you're working on a thesis or on a research project. That's something that's less possible now, and I sometimes regret that. Things remain more superficial. You've got less time for things, for projects or whatever. And the other thing is, which I would confirm what Olivier said, you are stuck, at least in my case, sometimes you feel stuck in a very institutional, very rigid institutional setting, very rigid political setting as well. Our foundation is being funded partly by the French Ministry of Research. So this spring, when there were elections in France, nothing happened for like 6 months because everybody was waiting for the results of the elections, and then of the regional elections. Then it's like, oh, come on, people, when can we sort of finally take decisions? And you had to wait until all the political offices were sort of in place in order to keep working, and that's sometimes a bit frustrating, having to wait for other institutions to take their decisions before you can take yours. That's a learning process, but I did find it a bit frustrating at the beginning.
So I can continue. What I also like most is the interaction with humans and the pleasure that I have the pleasure to work with humans who are engaged, who really love their job, and who really want to bring their jobs forward. This includes my colleagues, which are fantastic, and this also includes my customers, the scientists, as well as the owners of the small and medium enterprises, which also teach me a lot. What I also like is that no day is like the other day, so I learn a lot of different things and can share this knowledge and bring this knowledge to people. I'm struggling with what I dislike, because of course I dislike things during the day and during the week, but I usually forgot quite quickly what I dislike about jobs. So I don't answer the question.
For me, what I enjoy most is being able to meet different kinds of people from different disciplines. When you deal with biomimicry, then it's really multidisciplinary. So you get to meet people from the social entrepreneurship sector, from innovation, from big companies, people who are in the process of creating a startups. And within Novobiome, then we get to learn about the environment sector, and it's always really nice to see that what you're doing, it speaks to them, and that what you do is really relevant. What is not so nice is that you are still dependent on the political and regional agenda to get funding, and you have to fit in a box, which is usually what we don't want to do with this bio-inspiration approach. So at some point you really have to again try to fit in and forget about what you really want to do, but try to look the way people expect you to, so that it fits in the funding line and people can sometimes get what you do in administration, and they really need to be reassured that budget is going to be spent in the way it has to be. So every time you have to tell a story. So yeah, this is the most frustrating for me.
I think I already told you that what I like about my job is the diversity. I get to see a lot of different types of projects, and yeah, I liaise with a lot of different people. INR is a very nice place to work, I think. The atmosphere, for me, the human factor is quite important, so it's very nice. It's, you still have, freedom to be creative, even though, administrations are very rigid, and we depend on our Ministry of Research, who tells us what we should do and how we should do it. So, going to the less nice or the disadvantages, you are really far away from the bench, so it can be, when you are passionate about science, it's sometimes a bit frustrating. So it's, I made that choice, but I still sometimes regret it a little bit, I have to admit. And sometimes the job is a little bit repetitive, of course. It's, it's administrations, it's when you facilitate, you have to, a lot of work with a lot of Excel sheets and huge amount of data. Sometimes you don't have time to go really into the details of the proposals, even though you would like to. And that's it, I think.
So let's move to the recruitment process in your case. So for you, Caroline, maybe the different steps of the creation of your company. Can you tell us how you did get recruited, and maybe the focus on the asset of your PhD? Was it a real asset for your recruitment or for the creation of your company? Can you tell us a bit more about it?
So in my case, of course, because we're dealing with, we're in the biotechnology, clean technology sector. So the fact that I have a PhD in microbiology is absolutely, well, it's relevant, and it was a prerequisite, of course. But, well, it couldn't have been me alone. My partner, he's my business partner. He has a background in management, environmental science management, and basically business and science. So he's the one able to deal with making a business plan, dealing with the numbers, which is also absolutely necessary when you want to convince that your idea and your technology is relevant. So it's, in my case, it's rather about putting together the right combination of people, and work in synergy. What was the other part of the question?
The different steps in your case of the creation of your company.
So the company was created this year in February. So it's really at the startup stage. Before that, we got a grant that enabled us to do the R&D for 2 years. Well, the process was a bit special because this is not a university spin-off. Since I was out of academia at that time, the idea did not stem from academia, but the type of funding we got allowed us to be hosted at the university. So that was the Université Catholique de Louvain in Wallonia. And yeah, it was a special funding scheme which allowed a company to own the IP. So no IP comes from the university, which makes it a bit tricky because this is not the linear and normal way to fund a startup or to create an activity from academic research. So which is why it's also a bit difficult for us because we don't fit in a special box or in a normal way things are getting funded, but it's okay. I hope that there will be more projects that are going to arise from people who have an academic background but who decided to do something else after their PhD. They have the knowledge, although they're very specialized. I mean, each of us, we are really specialized, but we have been trained to do complex things and to learn a lot. So there is really no reason why we shouldn't try if we want to do something. I mean, at the end of the PhD, I thought I didn't know much, or I didn't know what I could do, but in fact we can do a lot of things as long as we like it.
So you asked about the how I have been recruited. There had been a call, a job offer for this specific project in 2006, but I hadn't seen it. And but on the other hand, at that time, I had my own company, a consultancy company, and had worked in a network on sustainable construction. During this network of sustainable construction, I got to know one person of TUTEC Innovation and did some freelance job for them. And one day, he told me, we have this meeting and you need some extra time, 1 hour of extra time. And I say, okay, it's fine. And after the meeting, he told me, so if you like, you've got a job interview right now. we look for someone who is coordinating this project on innovation management training. All the other applicants didn't suit us, and I think it could be quite a nice choice. Okay, I went in completely unprepared, but the topic was at the heart of at my heart, so I could enter into a talk and prove that I was the right one. And after the talk, the boss told me, if you like, you can start next week. And I thought I would do it for 1 year because I had my own company, but it's now 10 years. So this is the recruitment process. It has improved more to open and transparent standards right now, but still we rely a lot on spreading news in the network and rely a lot of getting access to people which we already have worked together, because the working environment is very cooperative. With respect to my PhD, in the current position, or in the position at that time, it was no plus and no minus. So lots of people in my company don't have a PhD, and especially my current boss, or all of my bosses in the company didn't have a PhD, and our CEO also doesn't have a PhD. But nevertheless, it helped me, because it helped me through the 10 years, 12 years beforehand, because I built my own company. I did not have money, I did not have contacts, I only had my brain and I had my title. And I built my company on the knowledge what I have achieved with my PhD. So it's definitely, and my PhD definitely helped me even more after I finally learned that I sometimes accept to be called Frau Doctor. So, and that's something, yes, the PhD helps.
Okay, I can go on. I submitted my thesis in April 2015 and started looking for a job, started sending out applications the classical way. I'd say I sent about maybe 20 to 25 applications overall, got invited to one interview in Munich, didn't get the job, and then an ex-colleague from Paris, which I knew because I had been doing an internship there years ago, told me that the foundation I'm working at now are looking for someone. So it was like a classical job offer, but what I would never have heard of if I hadn't had that contact. So very important advice: do internships and stay in touch with your ex-colleagues, because they're going to find you jobs. And so I got recruited on that job. Approximately had about four or five applications, and they chose me. Not necessarily because of my PhD, not at all because of my PhD. The PhD wasn't a prerequisite for that position. It wasn't mentioned in the job offer at all. Nevertheless, it does obviously help if you work in research management to have a certain sensitivity for what researchers do, what their everyday work looks like, what their fears and their hopes and whatever are. It does give you a certain credibility as well if you're working with other researchers. If you've got the little PhD in your signature or in your email signature on your business card, it does help. Unfortunately, that's how it is. They do take you more seriously. It does give you a project, more credibility, and I do think that it does help you later in your career. I'd say in my case, it didn't help me to get the job. but it did help to become project leader. So it's something that doesn't help at the beginning, not at all. It might even be a little obstacle because you've got 5 years of user experience, you're 5 years older than all the other applicants. But once you're in, it certainly helps to get up and to become to get more interesting tasks than before.
No, I think I can completely second that. I'll just briefly say how I was hired and then try to make some more general points about international organizations. So for the UN, very straightforward process. I was doing my master in international affairs in Geneva, started interning there for a year while doing my master, and when I graduated from the master degree, they kept me on as a consultant because I was already in the loop, and I was already part of the team. For NATO, it was completely random. I was doing my PhD at the time. Part of it was on multinational military cooperation, and I had one case study, which was the intervention in Afghanistan. So the head of the Afghanistan section from NATO came to give a speech at King's College London when where I was doing my PhD, and I interviewed him as part of my research, and we just hit it off. It was like excellent interview, and at the end of the interview, he told me, well, you know, we have a maternity cover at the moment, and we'll just like to come work for us for 3-4 months. And was, sure, why not? So I talked to my thesis supervisor whether it was a good idea or not. He told me, yes, do it. You'll have great access to data. It will be brilliant for the PhD, very interesting, and so on. So I came on as a maternity cover, stayed on longer than that as a consultant again, and was sent to Afghanistan also as a consultant. So I'm saying that because it emphasizes how the recruitment process works in international organizations. You have very few permanent positions, so it's standard to start off as consultant for several years before you land a permanent position. And the difficulty is to get the foot in the door, is to get the first entry-level job. It's very similar to what you said, in the sense that having the PhD doesn't help you having the foot in the door. What helps you is the random interaction you may have during your research or doing an internship or meeting someone, or so this network aspect of it. That will help you land your first consultant job. Then you will move from one consultant position to another for several years before you are already in a part of like the furniture in a sense, and people naturally consider you when there is a permanent position that's opening up. Now, this is where the PhD is important, because for most international organizations, they have a standardized HR process in which they weight in differently the education you have. Having a PhD gives you a bonus. It just gives you more points when they score and rank the application. So when you are already part of the furniture, when you apply for the permanent position, having the PhD will help you, just secure the interview, go into the interview, and eventually get the job. And I completely agree with what you say. Having the PhD at first doesn't help, but it helps you break the ceiling glass of moving up. When you are already in the organization, it will help you having the more interesting project. People will take you more seriously. It's just part of how it is. So the bad news is that having the PhD doesn't help you having the first job. The good news is that it will help you move up faster.
I don't think I have much to add. My recruitment process was not very challenging. I think they got interested in me because I can, I have a PhD, but I have also a background in engineering, and so I could adapt to different topics. So they knew that probably I could fit in and do different things, which was the case at the beginning. For example, I worked on a call for proposals on mental health. which is really not my field at all. But yeah, having a PhD helps you to mature, and I think it's it's important. It was a plus. You interact with scientists more easily because you know how it works. And I think at ANR it's not mandatory anymore to have a PhD, but in my case I think it helped a lot, and that's it.
So just before giving you the floor to let you ask your question, just last question from my side regarding your mobility experience. Can you tell us maybe some advice on how to get a great postdoc? We discussed it when preparing this panel discussion, how you can get funded, some practical advice on how to prepare their mobility.
I think choosing where you want to go is very, very important. Which type of lab you want to join? A small lab, a big lab. What type of mentoring you need? I think it's good to try to gather some information about the lab you want to join. Again, networking is really important. And yeah, in my case, I chose, going to the UK, going to Cambridge seemed to me, an asset. It's quite prestigious. I had a Cancer Research UK postdoctoral grant. It was not very competitive, but still. Yeah, you really try to think it as deeply as you can, gather a lot of advice, and at some time, go ahead if you feel like it.
Yeah, I think I will second that. When I started my PhD, my thesis supervisor told me, if you want to have a career in academia, you cannot be picky as to where you live, because this is just how the market is. So that's the first thing to take into consideration, that you are going to move. If you want to have a career in academia, you are going to move, because this is part of the entire process. What was just said about the importance of gathering information on the research environment is extremely important. That's absolutely true. After I decided, I was working for NATO, decided to come back to academia, basically divide my salary by 4 and start paying taxes again, because I felt I wanted to research. So I went for a postdoc in Canada. And because I already knew some colleagues there, I knew I could work well with them. They would provide me with the right environment to do my research, publish my research, and land a job afterwards, which happened. But this is where the information gathering process is quite important, because you cannot take the risk to go for 1, 2, 3 years in a toxic work environment at this critical stage of your career, which is a postdoc, because it's at the postdoc moment that you are going to publish probably some of the exciting research you have been doing during the PhD, starting a new project, and really, grow up and establish yourself as independent researchers. So taking this risk of being in a toxic environment during this critical step of your career is it's a really high risk. So yeah, information gathering. When it comes to international organizations, you have to move, because this is what most of those big international organizations want you to do. In order to land a permanent position, it's important to have field experience. So going to one of the, in my case, because it's my field, one of those conflict environments, this is what's expected. I went to Afghanistan. I have some colleagues who are now in Ukraine, who are in Syria, wherever. And you have to be ready for that. You need to have that discussion with your partner, with your parents. Because, I went back to academia for a lot of reasons, because I think it was clearly the best way for me to grow as an individual. But one of the reasons was also the fact that my mom just could not take the fact that every single night she would look at the news, see whether there were dead people in Afghanistan, and whether I could be part of them. And I decided I could not like impose that on her and on my partner. I just could not. So if you want to work for one of those international organizations in a conflict environment, that's also part of the reasoning you need to have. And this is something I tell my students all the time. You know, I teach in the Master of International Security. So when I ask them, they're 22 and 23, would you consider going in one of those field environments? You know, like 95% of them say, yeah, of course, I'll do it for 6 months, 1 year, whatever. And then I guide them through all the reasonings they need to take. Like, did you think about your parents? Did you think about your partner? What happens if you see someone being shot in front of you? Like, how will it react? And then there's second guess it. And this is part of the thinking that you need to have, because unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, it's part of the requirement to land a permanent position in one of those security organizations I was talking about.
It's a bit challenging to be the next one after this kind of experiences, but I can do it because I have some boring. I have quite a boring mobility career. The first advice I could give is look out for opportunities, which I didn't do during my PhD. And the second one is take opportunities when they are given to you, which I did do in 2008. About this day of the year, 12th of December, I got the offer to spend half a year in Brussels for my company. I got the offer to accompany the regional representatives of Hamburg and Brussels. The lemon in it was I had to start on 8th of January. So formally, I said, okay, I have to ask my husband first. But he couldn't have said no, because I had decided in the same moment when I got the opportunity that I would go. And he didn't say no, of course, otherwise he wouldn't be my husband anymore.
Yeah, when we talk about mobility, we heard a lot that it's something that is really career-driven and oriented, but it has to suit you as well. I guess it's probably possible to do the things you like, and at the same time staying in a place which you like, close to your family. But you really have to want to do it. Otherwise, it might be painful, and you also have to enjoy your life. I mean, this is the kind of decision you do before your 30s, usually. So it's part of the best moments of your life. So it's also important to think about your personal life. I mean, as far as we know for sure, we only get one life. So yeah, this is also important to think about yourself and what makes you feel good. This will help you in your career and what you want to do. So for me, because I like living abroad and discovering new things, of course, the decision I made was also based on the fact that I knew I would end up in an interesting place where I would learn a lot, but I also had to be okay with the place, otherwise this totally wouldn't have worked at all.
I don't have much to add to that, but I totally agree with you that you have to be fine with the mobility, but I also agree with Olivier, who said that it's sometimes sort of compulsory to be mobile, and not only in the academic world, but I'd say also outside, at least for a first job. I know that in my case it really helped to be able to be ready to move, which is obviously much easier if you don't have children or family or anything. So if you are able to move, it does help a lot, and it does help you to find interesting jobs quicker than if you are confined for whatever reason to a certain city or a certain regions. That's just how it is. It's not good news for those who can't move, but I'd say it does make things a lot easier. And in my case also, my mobility experience isn't as exotic and risky as Olivier's. I mean, I went from Germany to France, which is like not really exotic, but I'd still say that it does have certain advantages as well to be a foreigner or whatever in a certain environment, because it does, first of all, it does put you outside certain categories, which can be good, which can be something healthy, because every culture, every milieu has its rules, and if you come in there from the outside, you're not playing after the same rules. That can be good. You're sort of a bit of you're starting from zero, and you're not in the same. You're not judged by the same categories than some of the others, which can be a healthy thing. And also having a bit of an international background and speaking reasonable English also helps you to get projects or tasks with an international implication. So in my case, I am now a member of the French National Contact Point for the Age 2020 program for social sciences and humanities, and that is also because I am sort of myself, I got myself a bit of a mobility experience, and I'm myself a foreigner and all that. So that does also can be a very, actually a benefit and advantage to be, to come in from the outside and to have, to be a foreigner.
Now it's your turn. Do you have questions for our speakers?
First of all, I would like to thank all. We learned a lot from success stories. It's very enriching conversation. This is Iman from Kuwait. I am boursier from Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development. We are also dealing with international institutions for funding projects all over the world for economic infrastructure to alleviate poverty. I'm doing my PhD for my first year here in Schema Business School, Lille Campus, and I am, my background is from information. I did my master in Kuwait and I'm doing my PhD. I find myself in destiny now. I have passion for French language, and I learned a lot since long time. I would like to ask about funding for postdoc, and what are the criteria that they are being accepted by the French Ministry of Research, how to be accepted? Is there certain criteria written for postdoc to get funded for such positions? I would like to ask this. Thank you so much.
Should I answer straight away? Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to answer very quickly because I don't know, I'm not very competent on that as well, but I don't think there's one French government postdoc funding program that you can apply for. There's a huge variety of programs from the ANR, from foundations, from universities, and so on, and they all have very, very different criteria, so we can't answer that question in just one or two sentences. If you have a look on Funded on the website we have set up, they can find those funding opportunities, and then you can just read the criteria that you need to fulfill. So that's all I can tell you. There's not one big program that you can apply for. It doesn't work like that in France. The French research landscape is extremely diverse, and there's very different institutions, and they all got different criteria for research funding.
I'm not a specialist, but you have the Marie Curie program with postdoctoral funding, and I think you could probably look into that. Marie Curie? Yes?
Thank you. It's wonderful. Thank you for your sharing. And this conference is wonderful. My question is, when you were young, when you were a PhD, did you go to the conference like us and listen to people's sharing like this? Because you see, the PhDs, we are very busy, and we suffer very much. Maybe you too. So when you were young, when you were a PhD, did you spend your time walking around to search some conferences and try to get some information like us, like what we are doing now here? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I'm thinking about that as well. I remember during my PhD time, it was on the research center. We had a series of points to get for our PhD, and within the series of points, there were some activities. I don't recall the name, but we had interventions from patent officers to tell us what their job was. Probably some alumni who were now working in the industry, and unfortunately back then the only thing I was thinking was that I have to be at the lab. My gel is running. Why are we doing this? This is not helping me now. And yeah, this is probably true that when you're doing your PhD, you're running on you have your agenda is to finish, is to write up and to present and get your degree. Think about papers and things like that. And it seems like spending time listening to us is difficult to grasp whether it's going to be useful or not. But since you're here, it's because you feel you really need to open up to outside of the lab, because you feel you really have to. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this time now and you find it useful.
Hi, my name is Marianne. I'm coming from Novo Nordisk, which is a big pharmaceutical company. And all of you have taken the step beyond academia, which is really interesting to hear about. And of course, my question is, have you ever considered going into a big pharmaceutical company? If yes, why? And if no, why not?
There are 2 points. The one point is I was politically very much engaged in the time when I finished my PhD, and pharmaceutical companies did not have that good reputation in our eyes. So there was some difficulty for me to think about a career in a pharmaceutical company. On the other hand, as I told, I didn't have the opportunity, because at that time it was definitely from one day to the other, the large chemical companies, which were pharmaceutical companies in Germany at that time, closed their doors for any PhDs. Yeah, but nowadays I would completely think differently about it.
Can I just, well done. I think it's always, for me, I think it's a matter of opportunity, and also random things in life. Where, in the first days of my postdoc, I received a telephone call from Montpellier, where I did my PhD, and it was from Sanofi, and they offered, me a postdoc position, but I said, I'm sorry, I'm in Cambridge. Thank you very much, bye-bye. And when I was suffering during my postdoc, I really regretted it. And I think, it's if you want to do it, I think it's very good. And if I could have done it, probably I would have.
Yeah, same for me. I did never consider it, but I didn't exclude it either. And I think they always, if you're from the social sciences and humanities, you sometimes read that your skills are needed in the big companies, communication and but you can't really see yourself in that environment. It's something that's so far away from your own imaginary, especially if you're in research in this very sort of cozy research environment, and you can't really picture yourself working, and what would I be doing in that kind of company? So it's maybe also to the enterprises and to the companies to come towards the social science and humanities departments to tell us what we can also sort of what are the skills that you need actually, because you don't always realize what you have learned and what the skills that you can offer to companies. So in my case, I would say I'm happy to get a couple more years of work experience where I am now, and then maybe rethink the issue.
Hi. I'm a PhD student, and obviously I think I'm not exactly sure which direction I want to take in the future, like a lot of other PhD students. So my question is, do you have any regrets about leaving academia? And what do you think are the biggest pros and cons about leaving academia for other careers?
So maybe I can take it because I came back to academia. I think the moment I realized I wanted to come back to academia was when, during one of those meetings in Brussels, I was facilitating the discussions between the diplomats, and I realized I was much more interested in the process than in the outcome. I was much more interested in why one of them was saying that it was a strategic move to get the others to do that, and was fascinated just by the observation of this. And I paid less and less attention to the policy outcome, which was a document that should have been signed in the end. When I realized that, I told myself, okay, I mean, you cannot really force it. This is what you like. As you can guess from my back and forth between academia and policy making, it took me some time to make up my mind. But the moment I realized that, I went for it. And it's a very there is a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that I really enjoy teaching. It's something you have to like, I think, to be successful academics. I think that a number of colleagues go to academia because, I don't know, it's more convenient, it's more, I don't know, prestigious because they have professor in front of their name, but they don't like teaching. I'm really sad for them because I think that teaching is, at least to me, is something I find extremely rewarding to have this yearly exchange with students. So there's also something I like about academia is that I'm my own boss. I research whatever I want. And that's a luxury that is extremely valuable. I find extremely valuable. When I was working in policymaking, you know, you eat what's on your plate. So you need to learn about a lot of different topics. And in itself, it's challenging, it's interesting, but at some point, you know, you feel intimately that you want to engage deeply with one single topic, and academia allows that. The third thing, and to me that was, I realized afterwards that it was quite important. It was not part of my decision to come back to academia, but I realized afterwards it was quite important, is that I get to speak freely and participate in public debates on my own terms. In the sense that just being now a professor and recognized in my field as one of the persons who produce research in that area, you know, I get to have policy influence in the sense that policymakers seek out advices. I got invited to talk to members of parliaments, to ministers, and so on, and I can, you know, speak freely. If I were in the French Ministry of Defense or an A2 or an A3, which is a grade within NATO, I will be implementing policies, but I will not have influence to shape them to some degree. And afterwards, I realized that being in academia gives you that freedom, that you can speak freely and you don't have to report back to a chain of command. All those, I realize, are quite important for me. There are also drawbacks, right? There are the fact that you are under constant pressure to find funding, that, you know, marking exams is not super fun. Of course, but that's a very personal decision. It's just that at some point you need to realize what's most important for you. One, to me, it was this autonomy and freedom that I experienced in academia, I did not experience in policy making. But some people are more interested in policy implementation, and that's great. And so this is, I think, how you may want to think about it, I guess.
I still regret that I'm not in academia, though I have my dream job, but that's not difficult for me to have a dream job anyway. But I still regret that I didn't have the chance to have a career in academia. But my academic career was at its end before it had begun. And that was because my environment wasn't supportive at all. I'm the only PhD in our family. So there was no one who could help me. The supportive system was worse than today. And I didn't think enough. I just continued my research, and as a chemist, you do your PhD. And it was, I think, in the second or third year of my PhD, then I thought, oh, teaching is really excellent. Staying in research, that's excellent. And then I started to look around, and then I found out you should have thought about it earlier because you chose the wrong supervisor. Then you don't have a network. You forgot to go to conferences. Your marketing abilities are not very well established. And then there was one thing I think many of you also have. I had 2 children, and I said, do I really want to be unemployed with the age of 42? And all these were reasons why I skipped this idea very, very early. In the end, I was unemployed with 42. And in the end, yes. And what I just can do now is tell you, make your plans, look around. I think I would have become a fantastic teacher. I don't know whether I would have become a fantastic researcher, but I would have become a fantastic teacher. But if you do the mistakes in the wrong time, you can't correct anyone.
Maybe just to continue on that, I totally agree with what both of you said. I'm not sure if there's mistakes you can make that you can't correct. I don't know, maybe it's naive to say that, but I'd say you can always change what you've done. I'd say the 2 main things you should bear in mind is, first of all, what Olivier said, the autonomy thing, like you have got an intellectual and a time management autonomy when you're in research that you don't have anywhere else, and you need to decide if you're comfortable with that or not. That has good things and bad things. It's nice as well to have a boss who tells you what to do sometimes. You don't have to take all the decisions by yourself. It's nice to have deadlines, as I said, and that sort of stuff. It's nice to have a certain environment, certain framework you're working in, which you don't always have in research. And the second, that's the autonomy argument, and the second argument is indeed the job security argument. I'm the only one of all my colleagues at university who has a permanent contract by now. They're all sort of struggling with short-term postdoc contracts and all that. I think that's the same in any country, maybe except in the US, but in all European countries, research is extremely precarious job environment, and that's just how it is. That's very regrettable, but you should bear that in mind. It's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, and in terms of job security. And on a more personal level, to answer your question, do I regret it? I would say I do have second thoughts. I'm only 2 years post-PhD, so I'd like to think I could still go back and go for a PhD. I'm trying to do some sort of part-time research and publish a bit here and there and do book reviews and that sort of stuff to sort of stay in. So come back in 5 years and ask me if that worked.
Then thank you very much for sharing with us your experience as a PhD. Thank you very much again for your talk and your sharing experience. And now we will have lunch on the other side, of course, and we start again here in the same room at 2 p.m. Thank you very much.